Hey Boys and Girls Club. Let's talk tuning. Really exciting, huh? Now, this might sound a little familiar to you if you play guitar, or if you've heard someone play guitar. And this is called standard tuning. It's standard because most songs that you'll hear with a guitar in them use this tuning. It makes the normal chord shapes that we use a lot easier than they would be if you moved one of the notes. Like, if I bring the D string, the third string, down, I move that to a C. Then to play a E major chord, instead of doing this, you have to move all the way up to the 4th fret on that string. If you use a normal E major shape, you get a dominant 7 chord now. Just a little example for you. Now, these are tuned to E, A, D, usually, G, B, E again. The relationship between these strings are all fourths except for G to B. Now what that means is A is the 4th note of an E major scale, or an E minor. So, if you play that all on the E string, for a start, you end on the 12th fret. That's your E again. But A is right here on the 5th fret. So, if you want to keep your guitar in tune, and you don't have one of these, which is a little digital clip-on tuner, you just put it on the headstock, and when you play a string, the neck vibrates, and the tuner tells you what note you're playing and where you are in terms of being in tune. So you notice this A just did a little bit. Let's see if we can get it again. Right there, it's a little bit sharp, which means that if we... right now it's a little bit flat. So, like on this E, that little blue in the center means that you're in tune. This means you're below it, and you're flat. And sharp means that you are a little too high compared to the note. Now, you're not quite on the frequency that the note is. So, like I said with the 5th string, or 5th fret, you can do that right here. You can also do that on the A string. That doesn't sound right, because this is a C now. Closer, not quite. That's really close, but no dice yet. There we go. So I just brought that D string back up to a D, or 3rd string, since it wasn't really a D at that point. So if I turn my tuner on, I can check that, and that's in tune. You can do the same thing on the D string, now that we know that that's in tune. 5th fret, that sounds good, so our G is in tune. Right here, if you remember, I said that the G and B are a 3rd apart instead of a 4th. So if you play a G major scale, G, A, B. So, you want to play that 3rd. So that's on the 4th fret instead of the 5th. That sounds in tune. And then for B, you're back to that 5th fret. Now, we use this thing called equal temperament 12-tone tuning in the West. So that means that between E and E, there are 12 pitches. For major and minor scales, you only use 7 of those pitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you're back on that E again. That would be the eighth, or the octave. Don't call it an eighth. That's an octave. And then if you move a little further up, that's your F sharp again. Now, that would be called 9, which is why you can do stuff like, you have that A chord, you have A, E, which is your 5th, A again, and C sharp, which is your 3rd, root 3rd, 5th, triads. But if you take that other A, you move it up, now you have an A9 chord, or A major 9. Because now you have the root A, 5th, 9th, 3rd. We use these numbers in our scales to make things a lot more uniform and make them a little easier. Because now instead of saying, I want an A major triad with a B in it, you can just say you want A major 9. Now you can do the same thing right here, which is A, E, A, C sharp, F sharp. That's the 6th of the scale. So that would be an A major 6th. That right there is an A minor chord, because you move the C sharp to a C, so that 3rd is now a minor 3rd. And that's an F, which is a minor 6th. So that's a minor 6th chord. Where was I going with? Right. There are different ways you can tune a guitar. This right here is great. This is awesome. If you're just beginning, I would highly recommend you stick with this because it's going to make learning chords way easier. And generally when you're doing things with guitar, unless you really love metal or you really love slide guitar, this is really all you need for the most part. You can experiment with drop D. If you take, you take that E, you drop it by a whole step, so you get to D. Now what you have here, D, A, D. Now, you might have heard of power chords, which are used a lot in punk, a lot of rock. That's when you have a chord where you don't have that 3rd. So instead of this, which is a C major, you just have C and G. You don't have that 3rd, so you can't tell really if it's major or minor. And now you have that same thing, but it's open. Now you can do stuff like that, or you might want to learn a song that calls for some funky, different tuning. But generally, this is really all you need. Ooh, gave myself away a little early. This guitar is tuned differently. Notice that sounds different. That's because this is an open D tuning. D, A, which is the 5th, D, F sharp, which is the 3rd, A again, 5th, and D again. Open tunings like this are used a lot in blues, specifically with slide guitar. This is the slide. It's called a slide. As you slide, the notes don't really separate like they do when you use the fret. And there's that clear division between pitches. Instead, it's more like a slide whistle or a trombone. So you can do things like that, where you have open tunings. So you get a specific chord, like open D. A lot of the times people use open E too for slide guitar. Personally, I would recommend instead of doing that, if you really want that kind of sound, tune your guitar to open D, and then take this, a capo, and then put it on your second fret. Now you have that open E tuning. The reason I say do that instead is because when you're using heavier strings, especially if you're using an acoustic guitar, you don't want to move your strings higher up as a pitch than standard tuning. You know, guitars are built to handle a certain amount of tension, and when you mess with that and you bring, say, for an open E tuning, you'd be bringing these two strings up by a whole step, your A and your E, and you'd be bringing your G string up by a half step. If you're using really heavy strings and you're moving too many, there's a very good chance you can damage your instrument or even break your neck on the instrument, break the neck of the guitar. You can do that very easily if you're using really heavy strings, you're using an older guitar, using an acoustic. So generally, you're going to want to tune down way sooner than you'll want to tune up to notes. But again, if you're just beginning, which I'm assuming if this video is helpful to you, of, you know, the tuning by ear and how to tune a guitar, I'm assuming you're probably fairly new to it. You're not really going to need to mess around with something like this anytime soon. You definitely can. And music is about expression, creativity, and having fun. You know, you don't need to stick to standard tuning, but it's a lot more fun to do something like this and to play around with a tuning like this once you're comfortable enough in standard tuning and you know enough to do a lot of really fun stuff there. Because if not, then a lot of the things that you can do with this you're not really going to know how to do yet. And generally speaking, it's going to be a lot easier and a lot more beneficial to learn on standard. And you can do all those chord shapes and you can learn all those songs. I think that's just about all I got for you today. Good luck, and I'd say practice ear training. Practice being able to tell just by hearing it if a note is in tune or not. Because that's really important as a guitarist. It's really good to not have to rely solely on these little plastic clip-on tuners. All right. I'll see you next time.